name is Naji. I'm representing Kano East and West Federal House of Representatives. I'm from Enugu State. You're welcome. Well, a hearing, which I'm sure you are aware, was mandated by the House on Tuesday, 12th of May, 2020, at the instance of a motion moved by Honorable Samsudeen Bello and 8 others on why your task force opted for foreign airlines, British Airways, Emirates, and Ethiopian Airlines, to evacuate 799 stranded Nigerians from UK, UAE, and USA. Well, before we proceed, let me first of all acknowledge that the House is aware of the negotiation between you and the Canadian Authority for Air Peace to handle the evacuation flights from Canada, though not yet concluded. That's actually what the House expected for you in the first instance. You have a duty to protect the interests of our corporate citizens because they provide employment for our people and also they pay taxes here. The House believes that there are at least 3 Nigerian airlines that have the capacity to carry out the operations: Air Peace, Max Air, and the Asman. They all have Boeing 7773 or Air Peace, 747-400 for Max Air 3, and the Airbus A340-602 for Asman, respectively, which has been deployed for evacuation. The House is concerned that at this time, the federal government is thinking of bailout funds to help the airlines overcome the impact of COVID-19. The PTF allowed the little opportunity for the airlines to make money filtered away. I'm sure you people are also aware that Air Peace handled 3 chartered operations during this lockdown period to Israel on March 29th for evacuation of Israeli nationals from Nigeria, Turkey April 4th, and China April 7th for medical evacuation without hitches. And we will equally not forget, in a hurry, the free evacuation of Nigerians from South Africa last year by the same airline, Air Peace, during the xenophobic attack. Needless to point out that Max Air has been involved in Hajj operation for years now with clean records. The House views this action as not only detrimental to the survival of our indigenous airline, but equally a dent on the image of our country, more so when we pride ourselves as the giant of Africa and the leading economy in Africa. Those 3 Nigerian airlines employ over 5,000 Nigerians whose means of livelihood will be jeopardized if they go down. The committee wants to know why you opted for the foreign airlines in the first place. 2, how much was the total cost of the charter, and who were directly involved in the whole arrangement? This is for, well, let me just leave, we're still expecting the Aviation Minister, because I have his own questions. Well, and to the Foreign Affairs Minister, during the daily press briefing by the PTF on May 8th, you were alleged to have stated that Nigerian Airlines failed to bid for the airlift of the stranded Nigerians. That's a question to the Foreign Affairs Minister. We read in the news that more evacuees were brought in from Lebanon and Saudi Arabia, 59 and 292 respectively. What was your involvement in those 2 evacuations? The British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Katrina Lang, announced that British Airways will operate evacuation flights out of Nigeria as follows: Virgin, Friday, May 29th, Lagos, London; Monday, 1st of June, Lagos, London, at a fare of £449, and Titan Airways, Saturday, 6th of June, Abuja to London, at £600. The committee also wants to know if the airlines are bringing Nigerians from UK, and if so, under what arrangement? These are the questions, some of the questions that we feel that we need to ask the PTF, the Foreign Affairs Minister, and the Aviation Minister. Though we are still expecting the Aviation Minister, he said he's on his way, but we're expecting him. But since we have the Foreign Affairs Minister here with us, maybe we would like him to throw, because I believe that if we answer these questions fast, we will leave you within the next 20, 30 minutes, you will go.
we found ourselves in a situation when the PTF was set up and started its activities. It was designed as a response to COVID-19. And that was what it was funded for, essentially. Then we started to receive mail, internet from Nigerians outside after the airport was closed. This came after the PTF had been set up. And the numbers started to grow to a crescendo. And it became apparent to us that there was a large number of Nigerians who were outside, and we had to address their plight. As time went on, I then wrote to our heads of missions, ambassadors, numbers that are involved of Nigerians in each country, and to let us have those figures. It became clear that in some countries there were a large number, and they had now stayed for some time during this whole process, way beyond what they had planned for and budgeted for. So there was no budget in the PTF for evacuation of Nigerians abroad. I engaged NEMA because it's the job of the National Emergency Management Agency to assist Nigerians in emergency situations. And their procedure is to invite bids from carriers. We are agreed that this called for sending planes to bring people back. The then DG of NEMA had a bidding process, and it made it clear that it would favor Nigerian carriers, and Nigerian carriers would be selected. Then I spoke to him regarding the process of the bidding. He said to me that one of the Nigerian carriers had not bid. Ethiopian Airlines bid, and 2 other Nigerian carriers made bids. So I told him I would speak to that Nigerian airline that had not bid, to encourage them to make a bid. And I did so. They raised some issues, and I said, no, just bid. It's not something that has been stacked against Nigerian carriers. And they bid, and we selected Nigerian carriers. Ethiopian Airlines was not selected. So this was the government money for evacuating Nigerians, and it was for Nigerian Airlines through a competitive bidding process that was naturally weighted in favor of Nigerian carriers. Now, the procedure and the bureaucracy, maybe you can call it that, made the whole process a bit complicated, convoluted, and we were not making the progress we needed. And the Nigerians out there were crying to come back. Then the Emirates, we understood, on its own initiative, with the support of the Emirati government, advertised openly that they were free to carry Nigerians in Dubai to Nigeria. And we did not even know about it. I said, nobody knew about it. It was our ambassador there that called and said, that this thing had been advertised. It was not just to Nigeria, but it was to many different countries, as they wanted to help, take people, foreigners, out of the country. And we pointed out to the ambassador that we are in the process of organizing airlifting of our people. That is taking some time through NEMA. It got bogged down, the process with NEMA. So the government process got bogged down with Nema. Nema, made a point that this was not traditional emergency, that this was a health emergency, and that it was a Ministry of Health that should actually be funding it. The Ministry of Health was of the opinion that they had a budget for this COVID fight, and none of it was for evacuation. So we found ourselves in a very difficult situation. I could not just sit down and fold my arms and, watch things getting more and more difficult for the Nigerians out there. So one of the, the UAE situation, the ambassador now said that there were 3 flights and that the Nigerians had been buying the tickets of UAE. And I got a message, I think, from one of the honourable members, and I pointed out, I said, this is not a government initiative. This is something on the free market, and we're not involved. And of course, a lot of those Nigerians there had return tickets to come back after their trips on Emirates. So they obviously had reasons in some cases. Yes, I got a message to say that what Emirates was charging was too high. Could I, persuade them to bring it down? But I said, this has nothing to do with the Nigerian government. But I put the question to the ambassador, and he said he had no leverage over Emirates. So that is how Emirates then. So when they filled it up, and they were ready to come, we could not say to Nigerians, no, you cannot come back to your own country unless it's on a Nigerian carrier. So that's how Emirates' situation arose, and that's how they came. And they had 2 more flights, but we kept them away and said, that we would send a Nigerian carrier if we could. Then regarding the UK, we had at that point, as we were not making any headway with NEMA, and with the budget to get these carriers to go and be ferrying our people back, we said to the embassies and the heads of the mission that they would have to take the initiative. They know the situation in their countries, and they would have to take the initiative to get this process moving. And in New York, our representative there in the mission said he was in touch with Ethiopian, because they were already there. They had the clearance and everything. And he said, in fact, that they were already that they were still operating. And we said, well, there are also Nigerian carriers if they could be. If that was a possibility. So the deal that he made there for the Nigerians, they opened up an account. I think the Ethiopian Airways told them that it was easy, they could just pay. And because we had also issues with how to handle money in the case where passengers were now to pay to the airlines directly. We said that it's going to be a real problem because we're facing a problem already with accommodation, how we accommodate these people with no budget. And the plan was initially, as you know, for them to also pay the flight and pay the hotel and pay for their feeding, which was a hefty amount for people who had overstayed in those countries and didn't have any resources. But so it was like in the open market, airlines were to bid, and that's how the mission there now asked the Nigerians who were there that there were these airlines available and that they can make arrangements with the airlines, and we would just facilitate, get the permission, the clearance for those airlines to come into Nigeria. And they did a deal. He said then the most attractive deal was with Ethiopia. But it was not the mission as such that was making the choice. We made it available, and I spoke to some Nigerian airlines that, I don't know what their procedures were, but that if they can get in touch with Nigerians in New York, or in the US rather, that we plan to have a flight from Atlanta, we have to plan a flight from New York, that they should do so. It's not me sitting here that can do that, that our mission is also there. They should get in touch with our mission and be proactive, if we're Nigerian Airlines, and seek to get the custom of the Nigerians who are there. And so this is how the New York one came. But mind you also, I think in looking at this whole thing, we were looking at the fastest way to get our people there, and with as little involvement, actually, of the ministry, because we are not there. We are not, we didn't have any time to lose, and we don't want to handle money. Let them just pay to airlines, make whatever agreement they want with the airlines. What we will do is we will try and facilitate the clearance. And there are only a few that we could take because the hotel accommodations were limited. And the port health people, because there are people who had to quarantine them and monitor them, are always also engaged already with the cases, the growing number of cases we're having in Nigeria. So at every step, they were telling me, no, we cannot take people from outside because we don't have the capacity to take them. And one was, for us to argue the case of those Nigerians outside, that no, they had to come back. And at first it was that hotels were not available. Then we now were able to get hotels. And so we had a lot of constraints. And then we also had to act fast because the numbers were growing, about 3,000 to 4,000 Nigerians who wanted to come back. And it was just a question of how many we could bring and how quickly. So that was, so that's how the New York one went. It was an arrangement they made there, and I think that one of the reasons was that it was an easier mechanism to arrange. So on the UK one, again, we were now having, it seemed to us that the UK was one of the highest numbers in terms of Nigerians wanting to come back. So there was a flight already coming here, and so we explored the possibility of, since this flight was also coming and it was coming empty, of taking advantage to fill that one, knowing that there are more flights that will be needed for the UK, and those who could get in, airlines, national airlines, could also go to use the UK facility. And don't forget, by this time, the crescendo, the noise, was getting more and more of these people. When are we coming back? When are we coming back? And so this was a low-hanging fruit, as I called it, an option that seemed fairly straightforward, bearing in mind the situation in which they were in. But when we were looking, I mean, I'm not in the airline business, so I don't know all the mechanisms. I was in touch with all the Nigerian carriers, at least the ones that were more visible and keen to get involved in this whole process, telling them that there are these countries where we intend to bring people back. Be proactive, get in touch with our embassies there, and do the deal and bring the people back. Our job is to facilitate your entry. And then we wrote, after there were issues that it should be Nigerian carriers. We wrote to our missions and told them, please use Nigerian carriers at all times if you can. Now, when the issue with Canada came up, I summoned the Canadian High Commissioner, and I said that we understand that you are not giving clearance for one of our airlines to land in your country. And he gave the reasons why and safety records. First of all, that not familiar with the airline. The airline had not been flying that route before, so they didn't really know the carrier. And we pointed out that this was an emergency, not a regular commercial flight. Our High Commissioner was also engaged with them there. And, and I had a list of all the different flights that this carrier had undertaken. And they gave us a list of the reasons, security reasons. And it was safety and security reasons that was drawn up not even by them, but by the Nigerian regulators here, at various degrees of seriousness. And he said that they had a duty and an obligation to passengers, where there are these questions that are there, that were put there. There were reports of Nigerian civil aviation agency that and an airline they don't know, that they could not take that risk. But that and that in any case, if approval was now to be given with all these, it was going to be a long process, and it would be a long process. So, well, I presented that to the airlines, but I also cross-checked with the ministry and the Ministry of Aviation, and they confirmed that there were these issues, that they had written those reports about the carrier, and that it's in the public domain, So it was clear to me that carrier will not be able to get the carrier to permission to land. I met with the UK when they were now proposing another flight, a UK flight, to tell them no, that we wanted a carrier, a national carrier. And they gave me the process that would be undertaken, maybe mindful, maybe they share information, maybe mindful of the Canadian situation. They had now done their own, maybe due diligence or whatever, and said that it was likely that the process of approval might be a long one for some of those reasons too. And I pointed out to them that the carrier had been coming to the UK, not in a regular commercial capacity, but had been coming to the UK and all that. But they were they were doubtful that an approval could be obtained, quickly enough. And bearing in mind that there are people, waiting. Our first obligation is to our carriers. Now, I said to our carriers that, look, listen, in countries where they are saying you cannot go, why don't you get together, identify if you have partners, partner airlines that might not even be Nigerians or whatever. We want you to be part of the solution, if you have partners. And one of the carriers told me, yes, that there's they have a partner and that they will look into that partner going on their behalf. So that was really the issue with those countries. And, we made it clear we have about 3,000 more Nigerians. We made it clear that, we'll use Nigerian carriers. We're going to China, it's a Nigerian carrier. We're going to India, it's a Nigerian carrier. And there are a number of other countries. Lebanon was a critical situation. The ambassador there were 50 trafficked Nigerian girls, and it didn't cost Nigeria anything. The Lebanese government paid. The passengers pay. These girls, 50 girls, would not have been able to pay. And the High Commissioner told me that the other 19 would not be able to pay. But the Lebanese government put a plane free of charge at their disposal and also pay for the hotel accommodation of the 50 trafficked girls. So it's not for the Nigerian government to say no. If it's not a Nigerian carrier, you cannot bring a Nigerian into the country. We obviously cannot do that. The same thing with Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Arabian, these were people who went for Umrah and everything. We didn't even know. And we told them no, that we hadn't even given approval. But the plane was already in the air. They told us there was a bit of a mix-up there. And we said they should turn back, that they cannot land. They said, though, they did not have fuel to turn back, and that they were, on their way. But so we had to, take that situation. So, I think really just to say that we've given the Nigerian carriers every opportunity. We'll continue to do so. But I think the one thing we also have to bear in mind, as I said, I'm not in the airline business, but where you have, and it's not the government, as I said to you at the very beginning, it's not the government that is paying for this. It's not taxpayers' money that we're paying to foreign airlines. These are passengers that are being given just the opportunity to hook on to any airline that they want to, apart from the British Airways one, which we piggybacked on.
Yes, you've inducted Aviation. Well, you mentioned, I'm talking about the Canadian, the Canadian route now that we just mentioned, that they complained that they're not familiar with the airline, that they talked about safety, they talked about security, okay? And there's this airline that is coming to Nigeria to evacuate British national, Titan Airways. British national from Nigeria, Titan Airways. And I believe that we're also not familiar with Titan Airways. And they are also, I believe that they have given them rights to evacuate people from here. Then our own people, they have not approved our own people to evacuate ours from UK. The woman announced it, the ambassador. I can tell you, the Carolina Lang, Titan Airways is coming here on the 6th of June to evacuate for Abuja, London flight. Titan Airways is not familiar. Well, they don't know Titan Airways, but they are coming here to evacuate their own people. And our own Air Peace or Asban or Max Air cannot evacuate our own people from UK. It's totally unacceptable, frankly speaking. Because whatever happens to these airlines, whatever happens to these our local airlines, is going to affect our people. I have the video. I can play it for you.
She said that they cannot come into the UK. No, she wouldn't have said that.
No, you just told us. No, you told us that they referred to the business, what happened to our people in Canada, and now say that they need to go through a lot.
Yeah, no, but they didn't talk about familiarity, being familiar with the airline. What they said was that this airline had not been coming in, but the person who was speaking was consulted aviation's people.
Okay. I know that's why I said that you have passed the ball to Aviation. Yeah? We have Air Peace here. Please, I want to ask you people a very simple question. Do you people have any safety issue?
So, the issue, and let me talk about my own airline husband. We have two A340-600. One is already Nigeria registered. The other one is foreign registered, parked as I'm talking to you now in the UK. So if this opportunity is given to us, we will just talk to our people in the UK to use that aircraft that we have over there, which is foreign registered, to evacuate passengers that are stranded in the UK or even Canada to Nigeria, because that is not going to have any issue. The reason is because the aircraft is not even Nigeria registered. It is foreign registered. So it can fly anywhere because it's European registered aircraft, which we recently acquired from Virgin Atlantic. So in our own case, I think if we have been contacted for that operation, we will gladly do that. And we have applied for it since 10th April 2020. We didn't get any response. There was no any communication back to us regarding our application to do this evacuation, which we have written over a month now since 10th of April. We have not been called. We have just been seeing evacuation ongoing in the news. Nobody talked to us. We have been flying to, for example, like Saudi Arabia since 2017. We have all the necessary permit to go into Saudi Arabia and evacuate passengers because we have been designated to fly schedule in and out of Saudi Arabia. So I think maybe we can use this opportunity to know how we are going to actually contact the Foreign Affairs Ministry or any agency that is responsible for this evacuation process. Because as far as we are concerned, there was no any reply whatsoever to ASMA, and something that we have done, we have written, I have evidence, I have a copy of the letter that we are capable of doing this, and like I said, we are in a position, if you give us the evacuation to do today from UK, we can do it because we do not have any issue. Thank you, sir.
Okay, can we?
Really bleeds. My heart bleeds for this country. What is happening, or some of the events of the past 2 weeks, are really very disturbing. My heart bleeds for my nation, not because I'm blaming government for what happened. I'm not here to blame government, Nigerian government. But except and only when we accept that the international community go out of their way, especially in aviation, to make sure, or foreign airlines, to make sure that no Nigerian airline actually comes up, then things like this will continue happening. There's so much the government could do in all the things that happened. Canada, for instance, I called the aviation minister, Senator Hadi Sirika here present. He was even with the mother in the hospital. He rose to the occasion immediately and said, Alan, I'm with my mom in the hospital. Please tell the Minister of Foreign Affairs that you've spoken with me. I'm going to call him. In fact, I was even calling the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he also was calling him at the same time to show, his worries about this. When I told him what was happening, that the Ethiopian line was cornering something meant for Nigerians. That is why I said I'm not blaming government to this end, because both ministries stood strongly by Air Peace. Like he told you, he summoned the High Commissioner of Canada. The Minister of Aviation actually withdrew whatever permit these people had to come into Nigeria to do anything. So I can't blame them. That's why I'm saying that it's not about Nigerian government alone, but there should be public outcry against these nations. Government of Nigeria cannot do it alone because of diplomatic issues. When I went to South Africa to evacuate Nigeria, it wouldn't have been very easy for the federal government of Nigeria to go in there to evacuate Nigerian citizens. It wouldn't have been very possible, because that would create a kind of, coming from government side, that would have created a lot of diplomatic issues from Nigeria. Because the issue of evacuation during that kind of time will give a kind of an unsafe perception, insecurity perception of that country you're evacuating from, and it's not anything good for any country. And I don't think the South African government will be very, very happy with their brother government in Nigeria. So a private citizen now stepped in, and that helped Nigeria to walk tall during that period. So what I'm trying to say is that sometimes it's not really very easy for government on its own alone to do certain things. I call it international aeropolitics. The truth is there. Let me take the Canadian side, for instance. It was the Nigerian government that contacted me. It wasn't the minister, it was the High Commissioner there, Mr. Asheku, that contacted Air Peace, that many of the passengers are saying, why not bring Air Peace to come and fly them? Why must all this? So the passengers themselves were actually calling for us. We said, okay, we could do it. I said, look, it is a thing of pride for me that Nigerians are flying a local. It could be Asman, it could be Maxia, it could be Dana, it could be Air Peace, it could be anybody. But to me, personally, it's not about making money. And that was evident on the amount of money we told them to pay. To go to Canada, come from Canada, I charged Nigerians $1,134. It has never, ever, ever happened. And no airline under the sun will do that. Because I'm not doing these things for pecuniary reasons. To me, it's a matter of pride. And if anybody doubts me, the person can doubt anything. The person should go back to my history, right from the year 2000, and see the things I've been doing for this country free of charge. So I wanted to bring my fellow citizens, let them just take care of the fueling costs. The cost, an engine of a 777 is $10.2 million. We are trying to buy one now for our fleet of 3 777s, because we need to have the spares. $10.2 million from Rolls-Royce, the makers. So I'm not gaining anything out of it. So when we gave them this price, the man said, are you sure you're going to do it at this price? I said, yes, I'll do it. It is a pride that I'm going to bring Nigerians back. Once it covers my cost, I'm okay. I don't need more money. So the passengers were very happy. They paid full. Even the ones going back from here paid full. For the next thing we heard that they were saying they were not familiar with airpeace. Has airpeace ever done international flights before? That is absolutely laughable. That is absolutely laughable. Has airpeace ever done international flights before? They now demanded from the Nigerian officials over there that they needed to see evidence of flights we've done internationally, both tech stops, not necessarily passenger flights, even tech stops.
Can I ask you, do you have any safety certificate or something that can cover?
Yeah, I'm coming to that, sir.
No, you know, we have a lot of people want.
A list of 46 international flights we conducted, including 4 times into Canada. United States, 19 times. I'm not talking about Europe and UK. We've been going there. When you talk about safety, what is the international parameter for checking safety? And when the Honorable Minister said he contacted Aviation, I'll be surprised if NCA would tell them that we had any safety issue, because airpeace is a 3-time IOSA certified airline. IOSA is the international audit for judging the parameters of safety of airlines. We got it within 2 years of our operations. Getting IOSA certification is not as difficult as returning it after 2 years, because it's always every 2 years. We returned it, and we returned it again, which is even current.
You are IOSA certified?
Yes,
yeah?
we are
Okay,
also certified.
Good.
And we'll be conducting evacuation flights. Most of these, when we discovered that passengers that weren't going to be paying are not government, we now started contacting, people were contacting us.
We will come back to you. Let's talk to Max. Just
issue. We don't have safety issue. In fact, it's on record that our flight Boeing 747-400 just came back from United States of America after the due check. We don't have. And NCA, I doubt it if NCA could say any of our airlines have safety issue. None. And we have 3 Boeing 747. When NAMA contacted us, we even informed them that to maintain distance, 2-meter distance, the minimum capacity of each of our aircraft is 560. So we can maintain, if we are carrying 200, we can maintain that social distance. Thank you.
And the Minister for Aviation, Nigeria. Thank you.
you are here, let me ask you the question. They talked about the safety procedures when they said they spoke to the NCAA and they are acknowledged that airpeace and the rest, they have safety issues. Are you aware of that?
I believe Mr. Chairman is perhaps talking about the Canadian flight. I'm British. First and foremost, Mr. Chairman, we need to discuss, describe, and identify what is safety when we talk about safety. Safety is so broad that you can't say that they have safety issues. Which safety issue in particular? But specifically talking about the Canadian and the British, we have bilateral air service agreements between these countries, especially that of Canada, that I remember very well, which was very recent, passed by the Federal Executive Council and is deposited in ICAO. And that bilateral air service agreement allows Nigerian carrier to get into and out of Canada similar the same way. And if, as a country, we have agreed to certify an airline or to certify a pilot or any aviation license holder to be fit to carry out the functions for which his license is specified, every other ICAO member country ought to respect that. That is the starting point. Secondly, I'm sure I've had airpeace when he tried to narrate what happened. We've engaged the Canadians. We've refused the flights, that particular flight, when it was pointed to us as to what was going on between myself and the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs. And we had our reasons. If this flight is lawful and legal, if this flight is certified by a Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, if the pilots are so certified, if we don't find anything and it's covered by our bilateral air service agreement, then it is good to go. For that reason, the flight must go. So we refused them. It was a battle of like a week, if I remember, between us and them going back and forth, in which we stood our ground that the flight must go or the mission must be cancelled. And one of the things, one of the smallest aspect of all of this problem is the fact that we are living in very, very hard times, this coronavirus era, which is making businesses quite so very difficult. And I made a statement to the effect that some airlines may not even survive this coronavirus because it's not selling mobile phones. If I don't sell today, because the market, there is a problem with the market and it's locked until after 1 month, when they open, I will still sell my mobile phones. Civil aviation is service. If I don't sell tickets today, I will never sell it again till end of time. So they will lose. So in that case, and for patriotic reasons, we wanted the entrepreneurs in Nigeria to benefit from what is going on so that it will cushion the effect. You just heard from Airpeace that to change one engine over 777 is $10.2 million. It will hit about $11 million by the time he finished installing that single engine. So whatever money is being made in aviation is being lost on the other side of maintenance and living safety. But the flight did went, or ought to have gone, because they now changed the mission of the flight completely. They came in as a team of countries, many of them, 4 or 5 of them also, and apply to go to Addis Ababa. Okay? And they came as a joint application that they want to repatriate people to Addis Ababa, which I considered that, well, since they are not bringing the airline to fly from Nigeria direct to go to Canada, and they're saying that they're carrying their citizens to wherever they want to go to, we may not be able diplomatically and even through civil aviation politics to be able to stop them from carrying their passengers, all of them, about 4 countries or so, to take their citizens to Addis. Deep down in me, from the bottom of my heart, I do know perhaps it may be a way out of the situation because we deny them that flight, and we have the authority to do so. But we cannot deny them other territories regarding that one. $10 million, $11 million of an engine in an aircraft is big money. You've just heard also Asman, they said they bought A340s. That airplane has 4 engines, you know, and all the 4 engines will be roaring and guzzling fuel. It's a tough task to operate those type of airplanes. So our airlines do need our support. I must say, Mr. Chairman and honorable members, that we have become a family, so to speak, within civil aviation. We are no longer living in the past. We are living now as a family, united, and we stand up for each other at all times. And all the operators are here. There is not a single one of them that would say that he's approached the government, represented by Ministry of Civil Aviation, for one approval or another and got denied. There was a time when, for you to bring an aircraft into Nigeria, it takes you 2, 3, 4 months, and you pay. You pay to the powers that be. There has not been, I cannot count the number of aircraft that have given approval to be brought into Nigeria since I became minister 5 years ago. They must reach maybe about 1,000. And I don't care who applies, so long as he meets the standards, all is say process. The process takes about a day or 2 to come back to me from FAMSEC, and I say approved. There's only one aircraft, just one, that I have denied approval because it goes bust the 22-year ban. It is just 22 years, maybe about 7 days or so to become 22, and I refused. That's the only aircraft. just to show how we've been able to sustain and help this industry to grow. And we intend to continue to do so because, Mr. Chairman, you do understand that I am also part and parcel, much that I'm part and parcel of you, but I'm part and parcel of also civil aviation industry, that I like to retire my life. All of my 7 children coming into civil aviation, 2 of them already becoming pilots right now, as I speak. So it's an industry that I'm very jealous about, and I want to keep it as simple, efficient, and as profitable as it could be. So talking to safety, I do not know if there is any specific question put on the safety. Well, during operations, in 1 or 2 occasions, we'll find one thing or another, which is just very novel in every industry. Even in civil aviation, all over the world, the best airline today in the world, wherever that airline is, you'd find one snag or another on one aircraft or the other, and then you bring them down. I don't think the British had brought to my attention that they have a safety concern, as it is with Air Peace, for example. I think one of the diplomats, I can't remember who it is, during the group chat that we're making, did mention something to the effect that there was whether a runway overrun or something like that by Mrs. Air Peace. This overrun is something that occurs, it's undesirable, but it occurs every single time. Each time there's an operation, you have one reason or another, miscalculation, winds, weather, and so on and so forth. That happens that you have an overshoot. So let me round up then. Just one statement. So if there's anything that NCA had identified in any aircraft for a given time, and they have also either snagged the aircraft or called the attention of the operator or make a statement to that effect, you should know that they're exercising their functions, and it is not punitive, and it's something to be corrective, so to speak. Yesterday we had an issue to deny a flight. I had approved the flight, but NCA called my attention to the fact that this has violated certain sections of our law, and I withdrew immediately because they are the regulators of the industry. So in the course of doing this, even though you're asking a question, I would like you to, after answering the questions, to please also ask NCA to the effect that whether there's anything that came and then they dealt with it without my attention being drawn.
So like dovetail to the situation that happened with England, the UK. You said that there was a report from the Ministry of Aviation about one of the carriers. And definitely, and of course, that was a strong determinant for the decision taken by the Canadian. Because, I mean, let's face it, it does make sense that if your own country, if they're not supporting you or if they feel that you're not capable of doing something, it'll be very stupid for a foreign country to actually now give you the go-ahead. So my question is, and this is to the Minister of Aviation. Well, he said Minister of Aviation, so I'm just going to ask the Minister of Aviation, then he can direct the question to the relevant agency. So first of all, I am interested in knowing what kind of report that made a government not to allow a carrier. And let's face it, that carrier also operates in Nigeria. Okay, so safety is safety, period. If you're safe to fly within Nigeria, you're going to be safe to fly elsewhere. That's one. Secondly, it's a major thing that I think is a problem for all of us. It's a collective thing. We're all part of it. So when I say it, I'm not just talking about you over there, it's also us. We have a collective responsibility to support Nigerians and to be serious. You gave an example of Saudi Arabia airline that left. You found out that, well, they were already in the air. They can't do that in America or any other country, but they feel they can do it in Nigeria and get away with it. So we also have to be serious so we can be taken seriously. You have situations, it's not part of this, but you have situations where Nigerians are really maltreated in foreign countries because they feel that they can get away with it, that Nigeria is just never there for their people. I'm a Nigerian, so it's all of us. So we must change that attitude, because it's that attitude that is actually part of this, that's actually creating this kind of problem. Is that so, like, laissez-faire attitude, anything can go. So we must address that, Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs. That's not the subject matter of this, but this is something that is important, and this is something that also affects other areas. And Asman did say something about, I missed the application you said you made in April. I didn't get that. So 10th of April, but whatever it is, 10th of April, we are in a situation where we can do our normal bureaucracy that we do in Nigeria. Nigeria, it takes forever to do everything. But we're in a pandemic. We must respond very fast to situations, because situations are dynamic right now. Well, normally things are dynamic, but in this case, it's especially so. So, where it would normally take you 1 month to respond, one is not saying that you should now cut corners. You can quicken a process without cutting corners. If somebody asks for something in April 10th, and we're 28th or 29th of May, seriously, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't get exactly what he applied for, but I'm saying that in a situation that we're in right now, we need to respond to it and not do business as usual. And we must support our carriers, seriously. You have a ministry, if there's something any of the carriers are not getting right, it's your responsibility to point that out early enough. Because, it's like, it doesn't even make sense that you have Nigerian nationals. And that's where our missions in the various countries should also work. We have Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs. Our missions should be able to, don't they have register of Nigerians that are in countries? In a situation like this, they get in touch with Nigerians, to get them all together. One of my friends, an American, they took them out because Americans always keep track of their nationals, wherever they are. I think we should start doing that. I don't know if Nigeria does that, but I don't think so, because when I was in America, I know nobody had my name anywhere. So I think we need to start doing that, okay? Because when you start doing that, it actually makes Nigerians feel that their country cares for them, that cares for what happens to them. So this is sort of like something that dovetails, it's sort of like something that you have to get right. Do you understand? So you can do that on your, but for this particular purpose, I'm saying that I'm interested in knowing why Canada refused based on a report from you, and that we must start getting the missions to get Nigerians together and encourage them to use Nigerian carriers. There's no reason why airlines that travel to other countries, when it comes to a situation where you're going to evacuate people, all of a sudden you're no longer good enough. Because I know that Air Peace goes to Dubai. I know that I don't know if it goes to London, I don't know, but I know of Dubai. So if they can go to other countries, I don't see a problem in them now evacuating other people. And I'm sure Aswan also does that. So,
got wind of all of this problem of Nigerians that are stranded in different foreign countries. In your presentation, you did say you had an interface with NEMA. There were issues of lack of funds, no budgetary provisions for some of these activities. The PTF had already been established. Hence, there was no possible way, and Nigerians are now made to pay from their pockets. We are representing the people, and you must understand that what comes first to our mind is Nigerians. The pandemic situation, the COVID-19 pandemic situation in Nigeria is an emergency. And whatever attendant issue
that come out of it is also an emergency. We are here in this country. We know there were donations that were made to this country because of the COVID-19 situation. My question is simple. Nigerians that we represent, of course, it's Nigerians that you serve to as a minister of the Federal Republic, are stranded, they have exhausted their funds. Now you got wind that these guys were now making private arrangements. They had to pay from their pockets. My question is, did you even come to terms with the scenario? Because as I speak, this is still ongoing. Have you made a very good presentation of this situation to the PTF? Because there are funds at the disposal of the PTF that are specifically for this emergency situation, which is the COVID-19 situation. I think taking from some of these monies to evacuate Nigerians outside the country to this country is not something that is too much for this country to give to our citizens. So my question is, have you, as of today, have you made a presentation to the PTF in protecting Nigerians or for the welfare of Nigerians to be evacuated? I don't want to dwell on the technicalities of the aviation issues. Fine, they are there, they are very important because they are the only means Nigerians can be evacuated. But again, there are also Nigerians that cannot afford the very sums of monies that others are paying. But they want to come back to this country. They don't have the resources. But here we have a government. And this government says there is no budget provision. NEMA is saying we can't handle this. The Earth Ministry is saying they can't handle it. Do we allow Nigerians to die in foreign countries? That's my simple question.
I'm concerned about, we know that there are 4,000 Nigerians stranded, about that figure, minus the ones that have been returned. So the issue comes down to countries such as Morocco, where we have 15 students from the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology that went there on training and they became stranded. And there are other various scenarios. Is there anything in place for being put down to evacuate those citizens of Nigeria that are stranded in countries but are not as many as those in Dubai or US as we have? Secondly, there was a statement that the Honorable Minister made about the British Airlines claiming that they would evacuate our Nigerians and bring them back home since they are already on their way here. So my own issue about that is, since our airlines were already here and are willing and able to also go to the UK, why didn't we put ourselves in a position to also evacuate their people, vice versa? Thirdly, the statement that was made about the security report given by the NCAA that our local airlines have some sort of safety issue or security report, could those reports be made available to us so that we can also go through them to actually understand and get a full picture of what went down? Lastly, this question is directed to my father, the Honorable Minister of Aviation. The safety issue that was brought up about our local airlines, if it was really something that was critical, how come these airlines were allowed to travel to Turkey to pick up PPE equipment for Nigeria by the federal government, and then they took, Air Peace also took a flight to China, and also we can refer to the other trips that they've been making. If they had this issue, how come they've been allowed to take these other trips and not these ones to evacuate
their own people and also carry Nigerians? Why can't they allow us to carry their own people and then go to UK and evacuate our own people?
Okay, thank you very much. Airline A is unsafe. But during when all this thing was going on, when I and Honorable Minister for Foreign Affairs were grilling the Canadians in particular that I can remember, they brought out concerns that they have that Canada, which means their country, home country, whatever that meant, that is not at peace with an Air Peace as a carrier. They gave, if I remember very well, 3 concerns. I made reference to one that is not their own. They said that they had an information that once there is an accident about 2 times, that if the accident investigation officials get to the aircraft and get the recorders, they find that the recorders were operating by the pilot, meaning that, in simple terms, that they will not be able to use that decoder to decode what happened during the accident. I told them, well, that being the case, I have not informed you so, neither has the ministry done so. So wherever I get to a source of information is a false information. Okay? And 2, they said that they have a lot of runway overruns, that they can remember in the recent past 2 of them. And 3, that they remembered when the Dana window came off during landing or after landing, so to speak. And I told them that, look, by a KO regulation, if we certify an airline or certify a pilot or an aircraft engineer or whatever it is, or a controller, and issue him with a license, by convention, by status, by law, by practice, by norm, they ought to respect and accept the competency of the personality involved or the entity as an airline. This is settled in civil aviation, according to ICAO. So we were back and forth, and they kept bringing that as a reason. Between me, the Honourable Minister, and them, we've been having tripartite conversations. Sometimes WhatsApp, email, text, all of that going on. And so we generally agreed between me and him that we would not allow this flight. And that was how we didn't allow the Canadian flight. So I think it's not a formal report. Say, if there's any report, we treat aviation reports as confidential, likened to doctor and patient, except where the law permits that we will make it public. Example, if there is an accident and that accident has been investigated, then we ought to put it to the public to know. And even that is not punitive. It is not intended to punish and apportion blame. No. Accident investigation, the purpose is for us to understand post-mortem what happened to this flight, so that we prevent it from happening in the future, and then we can save life. But if we begin to apportion blame, we begin to say this happened, that didn't happen, and this is the guy who did it, or this is the reason why it was done, then we will not have the cooperation of people and operators and entities and entrepreneurs to get us to the root of a problem or root of an accident or incident, so that we prevent it in the future. So global practice, it is accepted that we will investigate accident only for us to use it to prevent others. So, so I think the other thing is the other way around, just that we have been doing. And then evacuation all over the world now during this COVID-19. All governments, including the government of the United States of America, including Qatar, the richest country on earth, they only coordinate and facilitate the coming back of their citizens, but the citizens, they pay for the flight, they pay for the hotel, they pay for the quarantining and all of that. All over. In fact, America, you will not board the flight from wherever it is until you either sign a promissory note, because they honor their own, or you give them a check, or you even pay cash, or give you a credit card number that they debit. So it is not the function of the government to pay for these flights. And in the case of Nigeria, we have the reasons and times where Nigeria paid. I think once or twice. I can't remember which one of the flights that paid. Through NEMA. Even NEMA said by their act, they are allowed to repatriate citizens in times of crisis. But they're not allowed to quarantine them or pay for their hotels or feeding. So they did that once or twice. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Aviation, or the task force are not equipped financially to be able to perform this function. And this has been debated severally in the task force. And so far, till now, the 15 billion that was found to be given for this COVID-19 fight, 10 billion went to Lagos straight, and 5 billion went to NCDC and their operations. So nothing came to the task force. As at the time that we were crying that we can't function, example, fund cannot pay salaries, cannot open up, cannot do this XYZ, then we were asked to give our budgets, which we did. And I'm sure the Honourable Minister of Finance had made, and SGF had made interface with National Assembly regarding this. Then they said we don't have money, but we can spend from the 2020 approved budget those items that we feel are very necessary. Even them, we have to now write and apply, and then they will allow us to spend, and we make a report. In our case, the only one that was accepted was the 652 million or thereabout. Even that wasn't given. We were asked to spend out of 2020 budget of fund, but they allowed us to spend like half of it before then. So, Mr. Chairman, this is where we are. I have answered the question regarding the safety and the mix-up between report or no report. There is no formal report. If there will be a report, it is not going to be a report that we're going to send to Canada or somewhere else like that. It's our in-house thing. And once there is any safety concern anywhere, especially with the renewed NCA today, that airline will be grounded. So far, we've gone through 3 operations that were denied, have been approved by ministry, but the NCA in their regulations or in their oversight or in their regulatory function and powers had a cause to caution the ministry, and that wasn't done. So I thought that these are things that may help in the discussion, and I will be more than willing. Okay, then why won't British Airways, when they bring in foreigners, their own foreign personnel coming to live them, why don't they allow us to now pick Nigerians and bring them back? I'm not sure if I can directly answer that question, because I had discussion with the British Airways when they brought. Okay, look, you are bringing passengers, or you are picking passengers from Nigeria out to UK. Since you are coming in empty, why won't you take Nigerians and we pay? At that time, they said because they didn't have clearance from London, because this and because of that. We fought, and I think they allowed some passengers to come on board that flight at that time because of the tremendous amount of pressure we put on them, because it doesn't really make sense. I want to use this opportunity to say, now that Chief Martin Oke is here, to say what had happened between us and British Airways in the past, so that you could see how cantankerous they can be and how their attitude is towards us. He made me chairman of a subcommittee to investigate why is it that the ticket of British Airways is more expensive out of Abuja than it is out of Accra, and Accra being farther distance than Abuja is to London. And I summoned the managing director or whatever, the country manager, including the one overseeing the entire Africa from UK, and he came. I said, why would you be charging, let's say, $10,000 for a business class ticket out of Abuja, but in Ghana it's 5,000? Why? It's not acceptable by us, and you must explain. Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important that I say this one so that we understand the nature. So he said, before the entire House of Reps committee at that time, he said to us, because Nigerians can afford. That was his reason. He said, because Nigerians can afford. Meaning that it's a demand and supply matter. And if Nigerians can pay, why not? Why wouldn't they charge? And if Ghanaians cannot pay, they will charge Ghanaians what they can pay. So they'll make more money out of Nigeria and allow Ghanaians to make whatever penny they can make out of them.
Now you are the minister.
So, yes.
When it happened, you were in the house.
Yes.
And now you are the minister.
I had more powers while in the house. See? Yes, I am changing it. And the way I'm changing it is that I have been talking. In fact, the pressman called me Mr. National Carrier, Mr. Concession. I have been on it to establish. No,
exhaust that particular one, so we don't maroon within a particular point. So once we've exhausted that one, we can go to the next one.
You're the Minister of Aviation. You had a discussion with the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
So at the point when the Canadian authorities whichever carrier that was supposed to convey our own brothers and sisters that were there. The question that I want to ask is this. What precisely did you, as Minister of Aviation, and you, as Minister of Foreign Affairs, what precisely did you do to either protect that carrier, that such regular allegations, which is done across aviation industry, when such regular accusations come, it is for our own, that's the people in the echelon, that is you and the minister, to actually protect that carrier, or at worst, even if you won't protect the carrier to engage in such process, we can either look for some other substitute, but it must be local, or find a way, instead of a situation where we found ourselves, a carrier will fly down to Canada, especially in a situation where the Canadian authorities have already informed you, and you also had the discussion with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So how did it get to the stage that the carrier had to fly to Canada and could not land because of landing issues? That's the aspect I want to...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but I think the honorable member missed. When they say they are not taking airpiece, and these are the observations, we say, okay, fine, but then we will refuse you also. And which we did. And that was what led to the explanation that later on, and may God forgive me, maybe this one is just my own inference, that they now came back with a group of countries, including Canada inside. Canada, Mexico, something like that, Norway or something, about 4 or 5 countries applying together on one joint diplomatic note that they want to take their passengers, their citizens to Ethiopia. I said that. So I think that was my own inference. May God forgive me. Maybe they came round through the back door to do that.
Okay, so sorry, Honourable Minister. What you're trying to say is that the carrier actually was well aware of the situation before departing to Canada?
I'm not aware.
That agreement, if they cannot honor our own.
Yes. Well, Mr. Chairman, the intent is to put on paper and pen what is mutually comfortable, mutually agreeable to both parties, without twisting anybody. It's a willy-nilly arrangement. And this BASA, and this is what I think some members need to know, this BASA, it is not between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Aviation, and the other country. No. Apart also from government to government, it involves every single airline in Nigeria. Air Peace, Azman, Max Air, Cabo, Okada, Qualqual, Haraka, Ako, all of them, everybody. They are represented. The letter and spirit of that BASA or MASA has their input. And if they object, the objection is carried before it is agreed. Correct? So these BASAs that we write, the importance is that to agree between the two communities, underline the word community, meaning that the country itself, the operators in the country, the regulators, the airlines, the caterers, everybody, to mutually agree how are they going to relate with each other in terms of provision of service of air transportation. That is BASA. So every single thing that is agreed there must be enforced, and that's why we deposit that instrument in ICAO. Correct, Musa? And that's the reason why we would... ICAO, like the neutral arbiter. Between me and Cameroonian community, aviation community, this is what we agreed, and we put it. So if it is there, it's a violation of the BASA. If they violate, if they violate any section of that, it's a violation of an agreement that is an internationally recognized agreement and deposited.
So this right now, are they not violating it?
Which one?
By not allowing airpeace to...
In my opinion, as minister, also in my personal opinion as Hadi, that they have no right to refuse any airline, be it airpeace or anything, that we had given approval to fly.
Okay. So what do we do now, based on the fact that they have violated it?
So what we do, in my opinion, we must insist on the airlines that we have given approval to fly into Canada. 1. 2, if, as we did, when they say, well, they have safety concerns, they cannot go and enter an airline where they're going to die, and they're not flying. The next course of action is what I and Honourable Minister did, to deny them their own also. So we denied theirs. So when we denied theirs, now that was, I say maybe from the back door, maybe they now come back, which we couldn't also say no. But with due respect, Honourable Member,
let's interrupt you on that. Why can't we say no, knowing that they came through the back door?
No, I didn't. I have no proof of that. I have no proof of that. Every single, look, this social democratic government of President Buhari in power, this one, it is social democratic because it understands the power of the people and the need to cater for the country. And we are bold enough, you in the legislature and us, and I believe the judiciary, determined to protect the territorial integrity and the territorial honor of the country of Nigeria, which we have demonstrated just recently today. I'm not proud about it. I'm not saying it's something good, but it has even been demonstrated last week. We gave an approval of a British company which violated our rules. We granted that company. We caused them to respect our laws, and we forced them to pay fine, and we reported their misdemeanor, and we are closer to Britain as a country than we are to Canada.
How much did you?
The law, your law, is 500,000 per every violation, which they paid.
So they continue violating it every time.
No. Even the payment and the money, I know that you know more than I do, Honorable Chairman, that it's not punitive, but it's to say that you have conducted yourself in a very wrong manner, that it has been found to be so by law, and that you have been asked to pay fine. And it's a huge statement. And Nigeria is closer to Britain than it is to Canada. So if we are bold enough to carry this bold step, then there is nothing, absolutely nothing that we cannot do, so long as we are permitted by law. And I'm not shy to do so. And if Canada or any country on the other side, regardless, they are on the path of law, they are on the narrow path of justice and truth, I'll support them as well. Also why the conduct and misdemeanor of Flare Jet was reported to UKCAA, to the High Commission, and deposited with ICAO. So similarly, we can do that also. That was what I was about to say when I got stopped. But yes, Mr. Chairman, sir, we can do of aviation. Both as an engineer, fiddling with my spanners, as pilot, for airplanes, for helicopters, and so on, and an aviation manager. This is one time that the airlines themselves will tell you that they have the most of support from us. Every single minister in and out will come and introduce himself as a minister in a stakeholders meeting once. Some of them don't even do, and they will go away. In the last dispensation, we had 6 stakeholder meetings where critical questions are asked and answered. And every single application that comes to my desk, example, all the applications from those that are here, Max Air, Asman, Airpeace, are all approved. For your information, Honorable Lynda, Airpeace can go to US, can go to China, can go to UAE, can go to UK, can go, all of the routes they applied, all of them were given by us and approved by me. Before I became minister, I was in a minister's office of aviation. Somebody wanted to bring in a cargo airplane from Ghana into Nigeria to do operations. He was crying with tears, with his in hand, but was denied. And I intervened, and still even my intervention didn't make any sense. It was denied. But we support them. Currently, just about a week or 2 weeks ago, no, 2-3 weeks ago, we opened even a platform. Only those CEOs and people that matter, we created our subgroup so that quickly we can talk to each other and solve problems, correct? No. So really, honestly, I would have loved to be on the outside. I would love to be on the outside to be an entrepreneur now with a minister of my kind. Because this is one, the minister will get up. Let me tell you, sir, when we came in, the airlines had their money, about $600 million to be repatriated, and so many other issues. I took them myself. We just came for a meeting and casually, and we discussed the problem. I took them around CBN, they got their money out, custom, they got their... They used to pay for custom duty on aircraft and spares. When I came in, at the time I came in, Airpeace had already was on their way going to pay about 130 million naira to customs. We got them waiver, and he saved his money. He was the one who said it in the press, not me. This is the first time I'm saying it. No, I will not keep quiet. I know you want to say more, but don't say your own. Please keep quiet. So we give them tremendous amount of support, believe it or not. And we are there for them, and we will continue to be there for them. Because we believe that the purpose, my purpose of being a minister, is to be able to support entrepreneurs and businesses so that they continue to employ our people and provide leader service. Thank you.
Canada, the Honourable Minister has responded to. The second one was with respect to ASMAN, which the Honourable Member mentioned, that they said that there was no response on time. It was in April. Well, I think there's one issue that maybe I didn't communicate well enough. Is that there are two different processes. When we're talking about the Nigerian government supporting financially the evacuees and paying for the flight, as I pointed out, the initial plan was for Onyema and as a government, to have bids and pay the airlines. That's government money. And that didn't go through. So there was a bidding process. They bid. They were selected. ASMAN was selected as one of the carriers and so forth. But it didn't go further because there was an issue as to whether this was a crisis that Onyema should be bearing the brunt of. So that's where that came. So it wasn't that ASMAN said they are ready to do any evacuation. They bid for a specific contract. And it was a government contract, and it was for Nigerian carriers. So that's, that's the situation with that. Now, the other thing, and maybe the Minister of Aviation would know better than myself, is that there's an open market, as I understand it, for airlines, to try to get passengers.
Sorry, actually, this is an emergency situation. It's not a normal commercial flight.
No, I understand that.
So it's not really an open market.
What I mean is an emergency situation. Like for instance, the UK, the British now, they have a contract for some planes that they're using to carry their citizens. So the point I'm making is that the airlines that make themselves available, to carry people, they have to also bid, because the government had taken its hands, off this when Onyema couldn't, contract an airline. So the government was no longer involved, and airlines were were trying to get passengers. So, for instance, the UAE one, the Emirates, they themselves advertised that they can carry passengers to Nigeria, and for Nigerians as individuals who want to buy tickets with Emirates. And we said, and I said in one of my PTF briefings, that the Nigerian airlines also have to be proactive and try to go to those countries, and the emissions there, and also bid, and try and get passengers. We have about 6 or 7 national carriers. So when I speak, I say, give priority to national carriers. The government cannot prefer one carrier to another or whatever. They will have themselves to take the initiative, to go and drum up business as these others, are doing. So there's that, slight difference. And of course, we told each embassy, we have about 100 around the world. Each one is, responsible
I sent you this,
for the Nigerian citizens within that country and engaging with them and trying to find the best deal for them.
But this is what the Canadian
because,
relied
I've had a case where I told an ambassador to take a national carrier, and he told me.
What we need to do as a nation is not just leaving it to the government alone. The citizenry, the National Assembly, what people are doing is fantastic. Everybody, they are listening to you. And I'm sure your outcry alone will help. The government can only do so much. I've said it before. It's not the fault of the two gentlemen here. The Canadian issue, they stood up to it, and some others too. The minister said the truth when he said he has been supportive of us. Before he came to power, it took me 6 months, and I had to engage a consultant to be able to get approval to import an aircraft. Today, I don't sing anybody. I apply for an aircraft today, and I get it the next morning. He's giving me about almost 16 approvals, international designations, including Britain itself.
You don't know the reason?
No,
Do you know the reason? Okay.
No,
Maybe I will tell you.
Okay, but now
because he just told us that he's coming back to the aviation industry.
Yes,
so he's making everything very simple, so that when he comes back,
he becomes my MD.
So please, that's the reason.
Okay, but I want to say something very, very important about. Having said that about the Honorable Minister of Aviation, he has been engaging us, and he has just recently appointed somebody who has been in ICAO and who has also been engaging us. The appointments he made recently in the person of the FAN MD and Captain Musa Nuhu, fantastic. They've been doing a lot, very proactive gentlemen. The issue is not government. Let us agree, because if we continue thinking that they did something to us, and that is why this is happening, we never get to the end of this. The issue is that these foreign airlines and their countries are doing arm twisting. So we can come together instead of blaming each other and find out how we are going to respond, which the House of Representatives, and must be candid, is doing. Now, on the issue of approaching us, we discovered that Ethiopian airline was approaching Nigerian passengers and getting them to agree. In the absence of Nigerian airlines coming to those passengers, they were getting them to agree. So it's not necessarily also the fault of the External Affairs Minister. So what we decided to do ourselves is not to get to unions. We know most Nigerians are stranded abroad. So we started using their trade unions to reach those passengers. We can come and bring you if you're ready. So they on their own started calling on airpeace. So once we are sure we've gotten a good number to repatriate, we now approach them that these people are calling on us to come and carry them. So it's not necessarily them getting people and calling us, come and take this. Now, you said something about, like in some countries, you have 5 people. You have 10 people. Rwanda, we have 5 Nigerians stranded in Rwanda. They have no money. We have about 12 in Juba, South Sudan. We have about 64 in Kenya. Airpeace has agreed, as a matter of national duty, to go to Kenya, to go to Kigali and take those 5 Nigerian people. We will go to Nairobi. From Nairobi, we will go to Kampala, pick them, go to Juba, pick them, and bring them out as a matter of national duty. We have communicated this in writing to the mission, and the mission celebrated that and thanked us. India, I got across to the Nigerians stranded in India. Those people are dying every day. They are dying. They all went for medical evacuation, and at the same time, no money to pay, because India did their own lockdown a long time ago. So a lot of them had run out of money. So what we did is to make sure, I got my people, calculate how much it's going to cost us to go to India. Let us charge them exactly that and bring them. Even within that, I'm flying so many of them, over 20 of them, free of charge. The ones in China, you can imagine somebody flying 32 hours, and you're asking him to pay $1,000. Nobody will ever do that for you. We are doing that. We are not trying to, we just see it as a national call, not to make money out of people during this period. And on the BA issue, it is not quite like that. I want to make an observation there. On the BA issue, some Nigerians contacted us. We contacted the Nigerian High Commission. They say, yes, we could do it. When we applied to do it, we used flight aviation services in Dubai for our flight planning and everything, and for permits. It was when they applied to EASA, all the European countries, they have to pass through TCO. We have not, the Honorable Minister has given me rights to fly to UK permanently, but we have to go through TCO. We are still applying for that. We are still in the process. Now, for this evacuation flight, even ICAO's Annex 9 allows us to go there without problems during emergencies like this. Now we applied to go there. The next thing they did, when they got information that we applied, they started now approaching the Nigerian High Commission that while them coming, we can also, as we are going to Nigeria, take these people to Nigeria. That was how it started. TCO, we have it in writing, sir. The TCO wrote us that they have no objection, but UK, they've contacted UK because they must do that. The TCO, the European governing EASA, wrote a piece that they are still waiting for UK to give us the permit, to allow them to give approval for us to land. On their own, they're ready to give the waiver because the waiver, there's a waiver clause there. UK never answered them till date, and they put it in writing that there's nothing they can do until UK answer because they don't want to answer. They want to leave it for they want to leave it for their airlines. So it's not our government to be blamed.
So you're having difficulties too with UK?
I don't have, yeah, because they've not given you the
They've
land.
not given the
yes,
approval.
and their governing body, the EASA, wrote
Okay.
a piece saying that, this kind of, we are ready to waive, but these people have not given us go ahead, UK itself. Instead, they positioned themselves and approached Nigerian High Commission to be the one to be doing the flight. So that is the aero politics I'm talking about. Our government is not to be blamed, but we have to sensitize the Nigerian public against this kind of thing. And what you are doing is going to stop all that. But if we sit down here thinking it's the Nigerian government or the Minister of Aviation or the Minister of Affairs, they've done a lot, but there's so much to do.
Who came here before all of us? My brother, thank you. Well, okay, sorry. Well, that's why I thank you first. Then also thank our Minister for Aviation, the NCAA DG, the AIB, the MD of Airpeace, Chairman of Airpeace, MD of Asman, Max Air, and other operators here. We've had a very, very fruitful discussion here, and I believe we will take home one, that we'll continue to dialogue. We'll continue to push on this issue of Canadian authority that we have resolved. I believe we resolved that from what you guys said, that we're not going to allow them except if they allow us. Then secondly, I must remind the Minister of Foreign Affairs also the issue of Titan Airways. The Titan Airways, that we don't know them. If they cannot allow our own operators to go there to carry our people, then we cannot allow Titan Airways to come here.
Foreign Affairs, we don't give authorization to planes
Well,
on the basis of...
Okay, between Foreign Affairs and Aviation, please. We cannot allow Titan Airways to come and carry people here when they are not allowing our own people to go there to go to UK. Because we don't know Titan Airways. We know British Airways, we know Virgin, but we don't know Titan Airways. So I believe that continuously we'll dialogue, continuously we promote our people. And we also know that the private operators, considering they employ over 5,000 persons in the industry, is very huge. So we'll continue to support them any way we can see, any way we feel that we can support the private operators. Please, let's all put hands together So thank you, the press men, everybody. Please, I think we'll have to adjourn for today. Please, can someone move for adjournment?